Well, good morning. Today on the Storm Report, I am welcoming Tom Topping, the Director of Human Resources for Directed Components. He's coming into the storm shelter today to have a conversation. Tom, welcome. Why don't you give us a little background about yourself?
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Chip. Excited to be on the storm report and actually inside the storm shelter at the moment. Having grown up in Florida, I know all about storm shelters and hunkering down and all those good things. So
Awesome.
excited to be excited to be on with you today. Um, yeah, so Tom Topping, I am the Director of HR People and Culture here at Direct Components in Tampa, Florida. We are a microchip broker. We buy and sell microchips to manufacturers and contract manufacturers and original equipment manufacturers around the world. We source
Wow,
chips from around the world too. Yeah,
that's
I had
awesome.
no idea that this industry even existed. Uh,
I
um,
didn't either.
yeah, until a couple of years ago. But Direct Components has been in business since for 26 years now. So it's been around for a while. And our CEO and founder Aaron Nursey started this business when he was young. And I'm super excited to be able to come here and do this. I have kind of an interesting background. I started my career in coaching and in education. I'm a former Division One assistant basketball coach and
Wow,
spent a lot of time in education, teaching kids, and then transitioned to the HR side, doing professional development and teaching the adults in the school systems, doing training with adults on best practices for teaching and for leading schools. And
wow,
then, worked a little bit more in a more direct HR role with the school district where I was actually managing 25 different schools, doing full life cycle HR from recruiting to retirement. So I've had a very, very interesting background. I spent about 4.5, 5 years as an entrepreneur running my own keynote speaking and corporate training business as well. And I'm here at Direct Components and absolutely loving life. Kind of leading this team and the culture here. And it's been a very very unique, I think, and interesting ride on how I've gotten here. So excited to share even more with you today, Chip.
that's great. Wow. It's funny you say about microchip brokering. I had no idea those businesses existed either.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
wow.
yeah. Yeah, well, it's sort of like the if you have a car that needs parts and the parts have gone obsolete or they don't make them anymore, you have to go out and you have to find those parts for your car. If you've got let's say you had a 85 Trans Am and you need a carburetor, well, they may not make a
Yeah.
carburetor for an 85 Trans Am anymore, and then so you have to go source those parts. And the same kind of thing happens with electronic devices, with our phones and
Yeah.
everything else. A manufacturer, maybe they're making some type of electronic device and they need 1,000 microchips, and their supplier can only get them 800. They then come to us to find those extra 200 chips, and so that's where we kind of operate from. So it's a very, very interesting business. I learn something new every single day that I'm here about it. And I've gotten to be a little bit of, I've learned a little bit in a short amount of time about integrated circuits and semiconductors and geopolitical issues in the semiconductor space and AI and all that kind of
Oh,
stuff. So
yeah.
really, really interesting, in terms of my career and my career development to be learning something new every single day. And that's exciting.
Well, it's funny because it's such it makes total sense,
Mhm.
the business model, and it's so simple that it's right in front of you, but people don't see it. But yeah,
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah,
But you mentioned about the geopolitical, with the Biden administration leveling those additional tariffs on
yeah.
Chinese microprocessors and microchips. Yeah.
Yeah, tons of stuff happening in the world that normally I probably wouldn't even think about. There was an earthquake in Taiwan not long ago that happened that could have had a significant impact on us not only the business here at Direct Components, but also on us in the United States, because Taiwan makes I think it's roughly 90% of the world's semiconductors come out of it. And that earthquake happened on the eastern side of the island of Taiwan, where all the manufacturing is on the western side. And so ultimately, that could have been really devastating to the supply chain. The Biden's Chips and Science Act is leveling billions of dollars to increase chip production here in the United States, so that maybe we're not as dependent on for the chips coming out of Taiwan. And you're right about tariffs. We'll be very interested to see what that looks like in terms of what will happen in terms of the supply chain with microchips that actually come out of China. And what that'll look like, because again, a lot of that will definitely impact supply chains across the world. And it's interesting. We like to say in HR that if it's in the news, it impacts HR, right? Whether it's immigration or it's medical marijuana, whatever it is, healthcare, whatever it is. If it's in the news in some way, it impacts HR. And now I feel like not only am I'm in HR, but now I'm also in this sector of HR that even has more significance when you think about electronic components and supply chain and all that, and even more geopolitical, wranglings and things and whatnot. So it just is it's really cool to know that. I'll be honest with you, Chip. I like being the tip of the spear. I like that kind of work, anyways. I like sort of the stuff that is exciting to come into every day, and that it's making a difference around the world. And so this is a super, super exciting field to be in. And it's one, like I said, I learned something, and I wake up every day and I turn on Bloomberg News to find out what's going on in the world, what happened overnight in Asia and things like that. Whereas I can tell you 2 years ago, I never did those kinds of things. You know what I mean? So it's just really, really cool. Really cool.
Yeah, you get a leg up on the day to find out, right, what am I going to walk into in the next hour or so, right?
That's rule number one in HR. Know what you're walking into. You got it. That's right.
Funny.
That's right.
Well, Tom, one of the things that, kind of drew my attention to you on LinkedIn was the employee engagement activities that you do at Direct Components. So I always find that interesting because, a lot of companies do it. Not many of them, or more, should advertise what they're doing. So tell me a little bit about that. How did you start doing it, or what are the ideas? Do you have a committee? Those kind of things.
Yeah. So in 2018, I started my own business called Training Perfected, where I did keynote speaking and corporate training and things like that. And one of my passion areas from my coaching background is really engaging teams and getting teams to work together and performing at their highest level, and understanding the role that communication and whatnot, plays in that. And so I really felt like that was going to be the space that I would probably occupy when it came to, doing professional speaking and corporate training. And so as I began to, really look into it, I began to interview some CEOs that were friends of mine, and some CEOs that I had met at networking events and things like that. And in general, the feeling on, employee engagement was, I cut you a check every 2 weeks. You should be engaged in your work. And, I studied a lot of work of Daniel Pink, in particular his book Drive, and some things like that really digs into, well, what really motivates people to do the work that they do. And Daniel Pink shares a sort of an anecdote of if I hired somebody to at $100 an hour, which would perk someone's ears, if I said, I'd like to pay you $100 an hour to dig a hole 2 feet deep, 6 feet long, and 4 feet wide. And then when you're done digging that hole, I want you to fill it back in completely. And then when you're done, I want you to dig it back out to the same dimensions and then fill it back completely in. And we know that for $100 an hour, people aren't going to do that job very long. right? They may not do it at all, but they probably won't do that job very long, even though it's a really lucrative opportunity. And so what that really means is that people don't necessarily work just for the money, that there has to be some significance, that there has to be some meaning, that there has to be something important to them to show up every day. Because when we're doing the work during the day, we're not really thinking about whether or not another, $20 an hour hit my bank account and things like that. It's really, we all want some meaningful work. We want to be recognized for the work that we do. We want to be appreciated. We know that engaged employees, they can impact productivity, they can impact profitability, they can impact retention, and ultimately it can impact innovation. And so, as somebody that really understood from the coaching aspect, I coached a lot of really high-level basketball players who went on to play in the NBA and win college national championships and Olympic medals and things like that. And so dealing with high-level players that have egos and agendas and really understanding how to get them together and play together as a team was as much an art as it was a science. And so for me, having the opportunity to come to Direct Components, which is a small to medium-sized company where I can really take all the things that I learned about social media, in my time as a speaker, and how I could leverage social media to, enhance my business. I thought, what, we really need to be doing that to enhance, when I do social media posts about some things that we're doing here to engage our employees and to make it more about the culture and all the great things that we've got going on here. The idea was, I want to share that with folks, and I want people to be able to see what's happening here at DCI and show, because part of the struggle that I think we have, and the reasons why, if you look at a lot of data that comes out of Gallup and Gartner and a lot of these companies that will show low levels of employee engagement, it's because a lot of times it's not done correctly. The efforts, there's no follow through. Everybody wants engaged employees. But it's, at the end of the day, you really have to have a plan. You have to be dedicated to it, and you have to allow for those certain celebrations of the things that you're doing. And a lot of that is what you see on social media when you see, one of our, something that we're doing, like this month is Mental Health Awareness Month, and we're doing all kinds of special things for Mental Health Awareness Month that allow people to grasp the idea that, the time I'm spending here in the office is more than just trying to cut a paycheck at the end. So, but trying to do that, I mean, it's difficult. It's a heavy lift. It's not easy, which is, I think, a lot of times some of the initiatives fail. But at the end of the day, if you're dedicated, you have a plan, you can manage expectations, you understand some things are going to be hit and miss with some folks. But over the course of time, most people are going to engage with it, and they're going to find ways to say, what, I really enjoy coming to work. And people that are happy at work are typically more productive at work, and that's what we all want.
Sure.
We know the opposite is true. People that are unhappy are completely unproductive.
Not engaged. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. It's totally disengaged, and that can cost billions of dollars in revenue over time. And so, and again, we do it because it's fun, because we like it. The things that you see that we're doing on social media, we really enjoy doing those things. So it's not like it's even a labor of love. It's just the stuff that we enjoy doing. And quite honestly, I have to say this, my boss, our CFO, COO, Roddy Premsuk, and our owner, Aaron Nursey, fully supportive of the things that we want to do.
Important. Yeah.
And that's key, right? I mean, if you don't have that, it's really difficult to move the needle.
So have you tracked it to about employee retention, recruitment? Have you been able to quantify that, or?
In certain ways,
Yeah,
absolutely. So when I came here, one of the things that we did was we started doing exit interviews and we started doing 30, 60, 90 stay interviews. And then we
sure.
also do kind of some climate interviewing, climate surveys and things like that. And clearly one of the best things that DCI has going for it is our culture. We have a really, really engaging culture.
Hmm.
Anybody that comes and walks in here is like, wow. Like even this plant that I have behind me, like the people that come in and water the plants are like, will you let me know when you have any jobs available? This looks like such a fun place to work. And so that's really what even folks that have left us for other opportunities, when we do an exit interview, we're looking for trends in anything that we're not doing, anything that we can do better.
Right.
But what we hear constantly on both ends, whether you're a new employee or you're an employee that's been with us for a while that's leaving for something else, is that the culture and engagement is really good, and it's a positive for their work experience. The folks that are coming in the door as new employees, we're seeing an uptick in applications for
Sure.
all of the roles that we have out there. And traditionally, we will hear from candidates, we've seen your stuff on LinkedIn. We really like what's going on. It seems like a fun place to work. It doesn't feel, like the normal corporate structure. And hey, I mean, our CEO is a DJ, and he DJs
Yeah.
happy hours once a month. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
already that sort of puts us in a different, realm. But at the end of the day, it's a serious work environment. We work hard. We play hard. I know that's cliche, but and I heard it when I first came in, and I thought, okay. But we really do in many ways. It's just a little bit different, and so we've seen it. To get back to answering your question, we've really
Yeah.
seen it more anecdotally, and in some of the early data that we're pulling in from those surveys. And from what we're seeing in the recruiting aspect. But honestly, even if we didn't have all that data, it's still just the right thing to do. I know it is.
Yeah.
And we hear it.
Absolutely.
But yes,
100%.
we do have some data to support the spend.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, and culture is so important because I've worked, I'm lucky enough to work for a company now that's got a great culture and they cultivate that culture,
sure.
Not only weekly, but daily.
Yeah,
And I've been in organizations that say they have a culture, but they don't,
Right.
so it does make an impact,
Yeah.
because, if you think about how much time you spend working,
Yes.
you want to be appreciated and you want to make it, a pleasant experience when you're walking in the office versus, oh, I'm here again. How much time do I have? Okay. That kind of concept.
Right.
Well, hey,
Yeah.
Tom, let me ask you this one question. This is the one question I ask everybody is,
Okay.
what was the biggest storm in your life and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say when I started my business, I had two really, really I had two experiences at the corporate level that were not positive, and these things just weren't clicking in the role, and my kind of ideas, for what I thought, the impact that I would like to make as an HR professional, I just wasn't able. I just wasn't able to do those things. I am a strategic HR leader. I am not a transactional HR professional.
Right.
I'll just be honest with you. And at the end of the day, I needed to be able to move into a role where I could be more strategic instead of transactional. Although I had what you would say would be somewhat of a strategic role, it still wasn't. And so,
Yeah.
One of the things that I learned when I was getting a master's in HR was we had a guest speaker come in, and one of my classmates at the time, I got a master's a little bit later in my professional career, and one of my classmates asked the guest speaker, I'm seeing these job ads that say, 3 to 5 years of experience, and and how do you get experience if everyone's requiring 3 to 5 years of experience if you don't have it? And one of the great answer from the guest speaker was, well, if you don't have experience, create your own experience. And the idea was, you can volunteer for your church or for a civic organization and do some things along those lines. And it made perfect sense. And so for me, when I had kind of moved through a couple of different roles with a couple of different school districts, I was like, you know what, this just isn't working. How do I create my own experience so I can move into my next role? And that was really what I did. That was the storm that I was dealt with. So without a job, without knowing anything, I started this. My wife and I did the math on living expenses and whatnot, and we said, okay, this is what I want to do. So really dove in and decided that I want to be a professional speaker and I want to do training and at the corporate level. And I was able to, put all of that together. Now, COVID really disrupted, that plan right in the middle when I was going to.
Sure.
I literally in December of 2020, I was keynoting at the Mirage in Las Vegas for 5,000 attendees. Okay.
Wow.
That went away, right? And we ended up doing it on Zoom, and there were 1,000 people in my Zoom room, and that was cool and everything. But at the end of the day, there were some speed bumps that came along. But what I was able to learn was I was able to work with a lot of CEOs on what they need for their teams and how to really build their teams. And I worked with CEOs on mission, vision, value statement. I worked with them on recognition. I worked with them on how can we take our customer service team to the next level? How can I take my leadership team to the next level? How can I do this? How can I do this? How can I do that? And it was such a good education and opportunity for me to kind of scratch the itch that I was really looking for at the corporate level. And I was able to, in many ways, I don't know that I necessarily knew that I was doing it at the time, but I was creating my own experience in the same exact way that I had heard, 10, 15 years prior. And so that was, for me, I was at a low point in my career. And to be able to just sort of rely on me and my family and say, we're going to buckle down. I'm going to do this. I joined the National Speakers Association of Central Florida.
Wow.
That was a tremendous help for me because I don't have any trouble getting up in front of a group and speaking or training or that. I mean, I live for that stuff.
Sure.
But I had no clue how to run a speaking business. And that was what I was able to gauge and learn. I would have reinvented so many wheels had I not done that. So that was life-changing for me, was the opportunity to do that, learn how to run a business, and then really excel in that work, to the point of how I ended up at Direct Components was I had a speaking engagement in Tampa at Armature Works. And someone that worked here had seen me speak and said, we need that guy in HR for Direct Components.
Yeah.
And honestly, that was really, and so it was sort of this whole, this thing, how they say you got to love it when a plan comes together. That was really what happened, and and so this was kismet in many ways.
Yeah, it came full circle for you. So the lesson for today is create your own experience, right?
Yeah. If someone says to me, if someone comes up to me and says, how do I do this? Now, previously, before 2018, when I created my own experience, I used to give that advice to
Sure.
because if you're in HR, people will come to me and say, well, what do I do to stand out in the crowd? What do I do to do this? Will you take a look at my resume and things like that? This is the job I want. This is my resume.
Mm-hmm.
What do I, what do you think? And I'm like, well, they don't really match, but that's not the end of the world. Create your own experience in some way, shape, or form. There are civic organizations and people like that just waiting for people to volunteer and assist.
Begging. Yeah.
And so, that would be, for me, it's that. Have you ever seen that? I think it's, I don't know if you would call it a meme or whatever, where there's a note written in the library, and it says on the note, if you don't see the book you're looking for, write it.
Oh, wow. I haven't seen that, but that's cool. Yeah.
It's kind of the same thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you don't see the book you're looking for, write it yourself. And that's truthfully, that was, I had seen all these things about, self-help and taking control of your life. You see all those memes as you're scrolling and all that. And then finally I just said, you know what, I'm going to do it, for me. And the other thing that I like to say, Chip, is there's a phrase in the stock market: past performance is no guarantee of future success. Right? That's the number one rule of the stock market. But I believe with humans, past performance is an absolute predictor of success. So if things work out for you in life, if they've worked out for you in your life over time, they'll probably work out going forward. And so I would tell that to parents of my basketball players all the time, that we're worried about, will my kid get a scholarship? Will he be in the right place? And they swim like sharks that can't stop swimming or else they'll die. They're constantly hustling to try to find the next opportunity, and they're constantly concerned for their children. And I would say to them, look, take peace in knowing that if things work out for you, they'll probably work out for your child as well. And I had to take a lot of my own advice when I made that leap.
That's awesome. Well, Tom, this has been great. I've really enjoyed talking with you today. So with that,
are we done already? That was fast, Chip. Are we done? That was quick.
Yeah, the time went by. It's crazy how quickly this went, but it's been great. We'll have to do this again, seriously. And I really appreciate you coming in and having this conversation today.
For sure. Thank you very much. Appreciate you having me on, and really humbled by it. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.